All right, everybody. Today is Friday, and that is a great day because it means we get to be together, get to hang out, and today's going to be a fun day. And I want to say welcome to everybody and a special welcome to the new members who are here maybe for the first time. Guys, welcome. This is week 1, Dianna's workshop. It's going to be a great time together. And I have to say that it's fun to be here. It's fun to be here. I'm seeing everybody come in, and I should do a little bit of this just for fun, you know? Like, look at this. Maryland. Yeah, good morning. Good morning. I see somebody, Trudy. Good morning from Buffalo. Hi from Michigan. Olympics and Super Bowl. Wow. Are you serious? Are the Winter Olympics happening? That's really crazy because I didn't even know that. Good morning, everybody. Yes. Okay, guys, it's going to be a super fun time. Now, what's really wild is I was on here about 20 minutes ago with Dianna getting ready and everything like that. And I don't know where she went. She's not here right now. So I would normally pull her up and say, hey, let's talk, but I've got a couple announcements. So maybe that'll give her a little bit of time. I already said welcome to the new members. Super glad that you are here. This is going to be a really fun, it's a longer workshop today, 2-hour kind of session. And at the end, I'll be here for sure. Hopefully Dianna will be here too to answer questions. If you have any questions that didn't get answered actually through the video, because Dianna does such a great job of explaining things, you'll probably have a question and then the next sentence she'll like actually explain what you were thinking. That happens a lot. But if there are questions, make sure you type them in the chat, and also wait till the end because we'll answer questions at the end. Next week, what do we got? This is my bloom right here. And I kind of want to show you, but I kind of don't. So I don't think I will. But I have to say this, that I did a demo. I started a demo. And I was like, nah, this isn't going to work. This is going to be it's going to be a little bit too complicated. So I started over from scratch and I did it again. And that time I was like, okay, that's kind of that. Like, I like that. That's a more of a simple step-by-step way through this. I think it'll be easier to follow. But I was sitting there looking at it and I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure that I like the end product because I did it in a different way than I normally would have painted it just to try to make it more simple. So then I thought, man, okay, if I'm going to work on this more myself, why don't I just do it on camera? So last night, really late at night, I was working on this painting right here. And so bloom will be a little bit, I'll break it into 2 parts. I'll break it in like the simple kind of approach, and then there'll be a stopping point, and then I'll show you kind of the next session. But, oh, yay, Dianna's here. Okay, good. I'm gonna, okay, then last thing before I bring Dianna on is the week after next week, we're gonna have Discover Your Voice with Jeremy Sams. Really amazing guy, amazing artist, super fun. But Dianna, how are you?
I'm great. Sorry, I got caught up for just a minute and I had to like dash down.
No worries.
I'm totally here, and it's so good to be with you all today on this beautiful February morning. And it's so great to see your face, Jed. This is just a fantastic day for a workshop, and I'm really happy to talk about light because so many of us have been dealing with winter weather and winter light, and so it's great to just turn up the volume and get some light on.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything? I mean, anything about what we're looking forward to? Because I'm definitely looking forward to studying light and understanding more about it. Is there anything that you want to say before we jump into the actual demo?
I think that the tutorial will say it all. If you have questions after the end, you can always, jot down your questions and And Jed and I will be here to answer them at the end too. So, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I go fast. So if you find it confusing, you can always go back to this and rewind and stop and say, what was she talking about? Yeah. But hopefully you'll get a lot out of this idea of how Impressionist painters use light as their subject, and some real concrete ways that you can utilize those ideas.
Wonderful. I am looking forward to it. You guys, it's going to be a great time. Again, make sure you type questions in the chat or stay till the end and we'll come back on. But for now, we're going to roll this wonderful teaching from Dianna. We'll see you guys later.
Dianna Shyne here. Welcome to another 2-hour workshop with Acrylic University. This month, we're going to talk about the magic of light, or actually the magic, the alchemy of changing paint into light, into the image of light. I used to live on Camino Island, and this was my view from my bedroom window, this and a big bay out beyond. Most of the day, this was my view. Sometimes it was a little greener in spring, but most of the day it looked like this, like a little metal band of tide. But at certain times of day, that band turned to pure gold. It was alchemy. It was magic. It changed something ordinary into something magical. And I always waited for that magic moment because I couldn't get enough of it. Light has some very peculiar and interesting characteristics that I thought we would talk about for a minute, because we make so many assumptions about the things we see, and yet there's a lot more to it. In the late 1600s, Sir Isaac Newton was experimenting with some crystals and lenses, and he discovered that a beam of white light, like from the sun, could be separated out into all the rainbow of colors that are visible to our human eyes. Later, scientists discovered that that white light was part of a much larger system called the electromagnetic spectrum, and the things that are visible to our eyes are only a tiny fraction of that electromagnetic spectrum. When we stretch that out, we can see there are only a few colors actually available to us as humans, to our human eyes, that we can see, that are visible to our eyes. Each color is a different wavelength along the electromagnetic spectrum. Reds and yellows are bigger wavelengths. Blues and violets are smaller wavelengths, and these wavelengths are translated in our brains to be light and color. Obviously, I'm not the scientist, and this is not to scale. But let's look at how this works. White light is beamed onto a subject either from a lamp or from the sun, but it contains all the wavelengths of visible color within it. That's what white light is. The lemon, in this case, absorbs everything, all the color except yellow, except that one wavelength, and it reflects that wavelength out into the room, and it reflects that wavelength into our eye. And our eye sends that information to our brain, and our brain says, it's yellow. It interprets the lemon as yellow. Now our brain has something, an important piece of information, and it tells us lemons are yellow. Like, no doubt about it, that's what lemons are. They're yellow. Or are they? Lemons are yellow in local color. Local color means the common color of an object under normal white light or white lighting conditions. So lemons are yellow, a lot of the times of the day. But optical color is different. Optical color is more time sensitive. It's more light sensitive. I put a piece of red transparency paper over my lamp. I took this photo of a lemon This is the same lemon under the same lamp. Notice the shadows. Nothing has changed. The photo is not messed with. What changed was the light. I put a red transparency, and now we notice this huge lion's share of the lemon is not yellow. Then I put a green transparency over my lamp, and we notice same lemon, same light, same shadow, same value range from light to dark, but that lemon is not yellow. We can't use the word is because color is a temporary condition. And if we realize that color is a temporary condition, we can represent all kinds of things, all kinds of lighting conditions. This is my husband. He's a musician. And here he is on stage. And I guarantee you, his face is not magenta and his shadows are not green and purple. But in this case, he is in this temporary condition of optical color. And for me to represent him with paint, those are the colors I'd paint him with. There are things in our brain, strong memories that give us that is. We know for a fact that maple leaves are red. That's just a given. We know that. We understand that. And yet I am going to simplify this picture in Photoshop to show you something interesting. The only colors in this image that are red are the leaves where white light is touching them, where light from the sun is physically touching those leaves. The rest of the leaves are not red. I'm going to go back and show this to you again. The leaves, most of the leaves on this picture of this tree are not red, but a rusty brown color because they're under different lighting conditions. They're in a shadow. Shadows can affect, they can change the optical color of things, and we don't even know it because we have a pre-made idea in our brain that would paint all of these leaves red, when only a few of them are. I took this photo in a vineyard in Italy on a rainy morning. A few minutes later, the sun came out. And I took this photo, same vineyard, same morning, 10 minutes apart. We put them side by side and we can see some things that the weather influenced the color of the grapes. And it influenced the color of the leaves. Here, I've just made a small enlargement of one of the grape leaves. Here, I've made another enlargement, same plant, same day, different color. One has a note of blue and one has a note of yellow. Why? Because one is under the influence of a cloudy sky that turns it blue-gray. One is under the influence of pure white light, and it is revealing color. The leaves are green, so there we are. Now, here's something I could say about this sheep. This sheep is dirty white, but that is only a temporary thing. When the sun went down, that sheep became purple and orange because the sunlight affected the color. Because what was happening to the light, the sheep is just a vehicle for capturing the light and casting shadow. And what happened was the sunlight was orange, so the sheep is orange too. I show this photo in so many of my tutorials, and I don't ever feel the need to show a different one because this one so well expresses what I want to say. I turned on a lamp for a still life for my students to paint, but to me, the wall was way more interesting because where the lamplight hit directly, we have white. And as the light angled out at an angle away from the light, we had yellow and then orange and then blue-gray. There's some violet. As it angles out, the color changes. It gradates away from that first beam of light. And that's important. Why? Well, it's important for every reason, but here we go. As our Earth turns towards or away from the light, depending on where you are, things change. The color of the air itself, the color of the atmosphere changes. I've changed our globe into a yucky, white, beat up styrofoam ball, and I shined a light on that ball, representing our sunlight coming down at midday. At midday, on a sunny day, the light is white, detail is washed out, and the color is washed out too. When the light becomes angle, right before it turns to shade, the detail is clear and evident, and the color is warmer. And then, where there is no light, where the light is blocked by the width of the ball, by the width of our planet, the light is cool or in shadow, the details are much less apparent. This happens at twilight or at night. We can see this occur so often in the gradations of our day. So here's a scene I use a lot in some of my tutorials too. I used to drive to Mount Vernon up in northern Washington to teach a class, and I often would take a route that took me past this scene, a cornfield, some mountains, Mount Baker in the background. But this is at midday, and the colors are midday colors washed out. When I'd turn around and come home during the golden hour, this is what the colors looked like. The colors were rich. The shadows were deep. The detail was much clearer. Why? Because it's at that edge of the day where the light is angled, not coming straight down. The golden hour. Here's another photo of Mount Hood. It's in my backyard in Portland now. And I went up onto a bluff and I took a photo about between an hour and 45 minutes before sunset. But watch the white ball and see what happens. When Mount Hood was photographed in midday, the snow was white. When I photographed Mount Hood about an hour before sunset, the snow is pinky orange. When it was a half hour before sunset, the snow was yellow and orange. When it was 5 to 10 minutes before sunset, the snow was bright pink. And right after the sun set behind my shoulder, I was facing east. The mountain is east. The mountain was in shadow and the snow was blue. So each few minutes during that time of day, the snow on Mount Hood changed color because the light on it changed color. The snow just simply reflects whatever light is shining on it. And the color changed, even minute by minute. Here's a photo I took in early midday of a cathedral in Charlottetown in Prince Edward Island. Then I went back and took another picture of it during the golden hour. And if it didn't have the same architecture, we would think it was a totally different building made of different materials because the light on it made all the difference in the color that was shining out from this building. I think that this is a really clear idea. It turned an ordinary gray-brown building to gold. It was alchemy. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the German poet, philosopher, was also a scientist, and he did some research on the color of light, and he wrote a book about his findings called The Theory of Colors, published in 1810. And it was really a groundbreaking discovery. He realized that when he beamed a light, an orange light on a solid structure, that the resulting shadow was blue. And when he beamed a variety of different colors of light onto his subject, the resulting shadow changed. So he created what we now consider a color wheel to show us those transitions. When he beamed an orange light on his subject, the resulting shadow was blue. When he beamed a yellow light on his subject, the resulting shadow was purple. Now I show this picture in a lot of my tutorials as well. These two pictures were taken at my daughter's house in Maine, one during midday and one in the early morning golden hour. In the midday picture, we're going to compare the snow to this white ball, and we can see that the snow's pretty white. When we compare the snow to the white ball in the early morning picture, the snow is not white. It is coral colored. It's orangey yellow. The color of the snow is determined by the color of the light. And again, when we look over here at our midday, the shadows are fairly gray. I put a gray ball up there and the shadows are grayish. But when I put that same exact gray shadow on my color during the golden hour, we can see that the color is blue to blue violet. So when my light is warm orange, my shadows are blue. What we can say from this study and from what we see in these photos is that when we're in the presence of warm light, we have cool shadows. When we are in the presence of cool light, we have warm shadows. And don't worry, I have some photographic evidence to back that up. So here I am with my lamp again and an avocado this time. This avocado is under the influence of white light, an ordinary white light. Here I've taken the red transparency and put it over the light. We can see the shadows are the same. The avocado has not tilted or turned in any way. But when the light is red, look over here at this shadow area on the back wall. It's green. Look into the shadows at the base of the avocado, and you can see that the shadows are green. So when we have beamed a red light on our avocado, the shadows are green. Here, I've beamed a yellow light on our avocado. We can see that the highlight where the light is hitting is yellow, but we can see that the shadow area all around is purple. This little specular light here is purple. And also, if we look deep into this dark, dark shadow, it is purple. So when we put a yellow light on there or yellow-orange light, we're going to get a blue-violet shadow. Here's a table setting at a place I went to in Tuscany. And it's just kind of a sweet fall average table setting. Pine cone, a little gourd, some herbs in a pot. But what I want you to take a look at is the table. It is a pine table. The table is simple. It's brown. It hasn't been stained. It's just got the patina of age on it because it was a very old place I went to. But I'm going to zoom in on something here. I'm zooming in on the table in the light because that table isn't brown. The table is blue. Why is the table blue? Because it's under the influence of blue light, of cool light. Now I'm going to zoom in on the shadow. And the shadow is a warm orangey brown. Why? Because the light is blue, the shadow is orangey brown. The shadow is warm. Let's look at it again. The light is cool, and the shadow being cast is warm. Oh, can you stand another one? This is a church in Camden, Maine I took during the midday when the light was white. The sky is blue. The shadows are gray. I took another picture of this same church at night with sodium vapor lights on it. Sorry, my picture's a little out of focus, but I wanted you to see the sodium vapor lights are green, and they lit the church up with a green light. But when we look at the shadows, we can see that the shadows on this church are red. When we're in the presence of green light, we have red shadows, opposites on the color wheel. Here are 3 humble little mushrooms sitting on my cutting board under my north light window in my kitchen. I didn't have any lights on in the kitchen. It was just light coming through the window, north light. And then I flipped on the light over the stove, which is a warm light. They are the same mushrooms from the same angle. I didn't change them out at all. Just check the spots on the mushrooms to make sure. The only difference in these 2 photographs is the color of the light. When we look at the mushroom under cool light, we can see that its lit surface is blue, and the resulting shadow is a warm, toasty, orangey brown. When we look at my mushrooms in the light, we can see that the lit surface of the mushroom is yellow, and the shadow is violet. The opposites on the color wheel. In my course on the color of shadow and light, I have you paint this as a demo. So here's how you represent light with paint. I have 3 main points and 1 smaller point. But let's take a look at these 3 main points, shall we? Number 1 idea is to focus on the values. When I say values, I mean the darks and lights. Every color that we make can be lightened with white or darkened with black or a darker color, creating a range of values, a range of the color from white to black. In every color we can make, we can lighten it or darken it. So when we focus on values, there's a few things to see. Number 1 is called staging the light. Here I've got just this simple tree, and I've changed it on Photoshop to not only black and white, but I simplified the values so you can really see them. So when we think of the darks, we're going to save or reserve these darks, 7, 8, or 9 on our palette for the shade, for shadows, for anything that doesn't have light on it. Next, we're going to look at mid values. Mid values, values 4, 5, and 6. Reserve those for bright colors, for shadows that have reflected light in them, and for planes that are turning slightly away from the light. We can see clearly that these green leaves fall into that mid-value range. And finally, we're going to look at light values, and we're going to reserve those light values, values 1, 2, and 3, for everything that has light shining directly on it, either in the sky or the ground or a window. If there's light shining directly on it and it's not a brilliant color, it's probably a value 1, 2, or 3. And if you reserve these values for these purposes, you will create the effect of sunlight. Here are my sets of grapes again, and we can see that there are some other things we need to think about. If you have your grapes on a cloudy or cool day, I'll turn those to black and white, we can see that the values really are mid-value. There's not a lot of value change from white to black. But when we look at our grapes in full light, in bright light, in sunlight, there is a wide value range from white to black. Here's a lovely painting by artist Ramona Youngquist, and she has staged her lights very effectively by just simply reserving her lights, in this case 1 through 4, for everything that the light is hitting. Everything that is lit by the actual light of the sun, she is given a value, a light value. And everything that's in shadow, which is most of the things in this painting, she's given a dark value, everything from 5 to 9. And you can see how effective that is by separating out the lights from the shadows. She has created a very effective painting of shadow and light. Here's another painter of the light, Claude Monet. He made this his lifelong passion, painting the effects of light. And so he did a whole series of paintings of the Rouen Cathedral. In the first one, we can see it's under the effect, the full effect of bright light. In the second one, it's on a cloudy day. So I will change these to black and white so we can see their value range. In the full lit, full day painting of the cathedral, it's the full range of values. In the painting of the cathedral, where it is under the influence of fog or foggy light, and the light is being filtered through fog, I should say that makes it more clear. We can see that the values are very close together. When we look at the values, we can see that they represent how the light is approaching the object. One is unfiltered and one is filtered. We can also tell by the color of the light what's happening as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But here are some more paintings by Claude Monet that I think are really instructive in the light, because he was a master of light. We see this first painting in the upper left of some cliffs and water, and we can see that full range of values from 1 to 9, and it's very clear. In this painting, of the boats, they're under some filtered light. And the light is not filtering through clouds, it's filtering through green leaves. And what happens is that filtered light, the colors and values in the boats are mid-value, but the colors are green. Because the light is filtering through green leaves, the colors in the more lit side of these boats is green. And when we look into the shadows, we can see a note of red. In this painting, we can see the values are just really ever so delicately mid-light value. And just a peep of this bridge comes through. The shadows are still darker than the lights, but the value range is smaller. Here in one of his grain stacks paintings, we can see that the light is warm and the shadows are cool. And he has an almost full range of values, but the light is being filtered through that late afternoon mist. And so there are not any true blacks here because he is under the influence of mist. And in this final painting, we can see that the light is fading. This afternoon light is fading off the front of the cathedral, and the cathedral is beginning to be cast into shadow. And we can see the effects of that full light from 1 to 9. We understand it was a sunny day, and we're right at the edge of the day, and the day is starting to slip away. Beautiful. We can see very clearly how Claude Monet represented light with paint. Let's look at the second way you can represent light with paint. We touched on that with Claude Monet's paintings, but let's look at this. We're going to focus on the color and temperature of the light. Remember Goethe's chart. When a warm light fell on something, its opposite on the color wheel was the shadow. So here in this simple photograph of a clothespin in the light, we can see that the shadow is violet and that the light, the lit part of that clothespin, is bright yellow. In the bird, we can see that the shadow on its chest is a warm brown and the light is a cool gray beige, very different from cool to warm, from warm to cool. We touched on that with our grapes and with our mushrooms, but let's take another look at it under the full sunlit sky. I took a picture of this walkway during midday when the sun was directly ahead of us. And again, another walkway in another part of the world where the sun was starting to go away, when the sun was starting to set. And when we put these two photos side by side, we can see something very clearly. In the first one, we can look at where the shadows fall, and we notice they are directly under the object casting them. The other thing is we can see it's under bright sunlight because we have all these values from 1 to 9. All the values are represented here, showing us the bright sunlight and the deep shadows. When we look at the photo on the right, we can see the sunlight is coming down at an angle. It hits the top of this board. Here's the shadow of this board. We can directly chart the course of the angle of the light and see that it is much more angled. We also note that the sunlit part of the railings is orange and the shadow is blue-violet. So when I'm going to move a little piece of this, both are weathered wood, both have been out here for years and years, but let's take a look at this weathered wood from midday and slide it in next to the weathered wood during the golden hour. And you can see that the temperature of the color is cooler, more under the influence. It's silvery. It's hard to tell if it's blue or purple, but you can mix a silvery, cool gray color to represent it using blue or purple to mix that color. We'll get into that during my demo. I love this painting by Itzhak Levitan, a Russian impressionist. I'm loving this snow. And when I put my white ball, my white snowball against the snow, I'm seeing that the snow is green. And I'm thinking that the sunlight is either coming through clouds, but clouds would turn it sort of gray, or maybe it's being filtered through green foliage. But nonetheless, the snow is green. We can see how it's represented here on the green side of our color wheel. And then I'm going to take a little sliver of the shadow area. And when I put it next to my dark, warm reds, because red is the opposite on the color wheel from green, we can see that the colors in the shadows are represented best by these dark, warm reds. I love this. I love this so much. Here, I'm going to look at the snow in Michelle Usabelli's painting. When I move my white snowball over her snow, we can see it's a blue-violet. And when I move it against the lit part of her snow, we can see it's a yellow-orange very clearly. And when I move a little sliver of her snow color up, we can see very clearly it's part of the yellow-orange color harmony right here, the yellow-orange. And when I move her shadow, we can see quite clearly it's part of the blue to blue-violet colors. Opposites on the color wheel create a clear distinction of shadow and light, and therefore you're representing light. And finally, number 3, how is light a subject? How do you represent light with paint? Number 3 is to focus on the intensity of the color. And by intensity, I mean how bright it is. These colors are bright, saturated color. They're high chroma. This color band, I cut and pasted this first color band and then took the saturation knob down and reduced some of its saturation. It's now dull colors, low saturation or low chroma colors. And in the final band, I just took the saturation knob to 0 and took all the color out of it so that it was unsaturated or simply black and white and shades of gray. So how does this work when we're dealing with sunlight, when we're creating the impression of light? Well, in this photo that I took on Camano Island, we can see the values, number 1, of the eagle are all the way white to all the way black. It's a sunny day. But back here in the woods, we can see that the color is muted. The color is dull. It's low saturation. The value range in the background is very small, showing us that it's coming through fog. So we have 2 different sets of sunlight here. One, the bright morning sunlight on the backside of the eagle, and the foggy, the sun penetrating through fog back here in the forest. I love these 2 paintings. One is by Jennifer McChristian and one is by American artist John Twachtman. And both of them have a similar low saturation color range. One is because Jennifer was trying to create the impression of a dust storm. That is, bright sunlight filtered through dust, through dirt. She has a large color range, which shows us, or a large value range, that shows us that sunlight was still penetrating, but the color was altered by the dirt in the air. Over on the right, we see this painting by John Twachtman. His colors are very muted and dulled because he's showing us the sunlight is coming through a heavy layer of cloud and snow and mist, and all of those things dull the appearance of color. These 2 paintings, one by Ramona Youngquist and one by me, the sunlight is coming through unfiltered, not filtered by cloud or by trees or by mist or by dust. It's coming through unfiltered, giving us the bright, clean, clear colors of the late afternoon. We can see how the color harmony, how the warmth of the day is affecting the colors on both the wall and the shadow. We can see how the light of the day is affecting the colors on the side of Ramona's building and in the shadowed area of her building. but the colors are bright and intense. And for bright, intense colors that capture the reality of light, we're looking at California Impressionists, Frank Bischoff and William Wendt. These areas are known for their clear air and clean, bright sunlight, and they've captured them in the brilliant colors of California. In this painting by my good friend Al Currier, we can see that he has created the effect of brilliant light. And the way he did that was to surround his light with a darker color of an opposite color on the color wheel. So often my students say to me, they use bright colors right out of the tube. They say, I can't get my color bright enough. Well, here's a trick for you, a way to make your color out of the tube or even lightened. Once you've lightened your color with white, it's not bright anymore. How do you make it look light? How do you make it look bright? How do you make it look like the lights are on in your painting? Well, this trick will do it. Take your color and put it over or next to a color of opposite on the color wheel that is darker and duller. Look at how that yellow seems to glow. Here I've taken pale blue and put it next to a darker, duller opposite on the color wheel, which was at one point orange until I darkened it out into that deep rust color. Here I've got pink and I've put it against a darker, duller green. And look at how that pink glows. If you stare at it for a while, it starts to pulse in your eye. And finally, this blue-violet color. Well, you can't really get a dark yellow. It doesn't happen. So I've mixed a dark brown that has a lot of yellow in it. But look at how that delicate, pastel-y violet color looks glowing and brilliant next to its color opposite that is dark. This is a trick to make your lights look brighter and lighter. And finally, here's a little side note about how to create light as a subject in your paintings with your paint. Look for the gradations in light. Remember our little lamp with the gradations of color on the wall? We're going to look for that in a number of different things because when light hits an object, it creates gradations, whether we see them right away or not. So I am going to simplify this picture of the little bowl and spoon so you can see the gradations very clearly, from white to yellow to orange on the wall, from teal to purple to green to purple, in the gradations in this little napkin on the table, gradations in the persimmon, gradations everywhere where light hits. As soon as the light starts to angle away, the colors change. Take a look. You can see them now. You can see how they are gradating from one thing to another. Now let's look at this vase as it gradates from a lighter value to a darker value as it begins to turn in space. Gradations happen everywhere. Even in the most unlikely places, when I simplify these pomegranates down, you can see gradations happening inside the pomegranate seeds. You can see gradations from white to yellow to orange to greeny gray across that napkin on the ground. When I simplify the flamingo, you can see gradations on the circular back of the bird. You can see the gradations on its neck, in its legs. Gradations happen when sunlight hits something and then it angles away. So thinking about that, you can create an even greater, more convincing depth of light in your paintings. So pay attention and look for gradients everywhere, in the night sky, in the evening sky, on a simple object. They're everywhere. So here's the summary. How do you represent light with paint? Number one, you can focus on the values. You can focus on the color, direction, and temperature of the light. If you're dealing with light as it is represented in weather or in things happening to the atmosphere, you can focus on the intensity of the color. And finally, as a side note, pay attention to those gradations of light. You can create a very convincing painting where your subject is the light. That said, let's paint. In today's demo, I'm going to focus on these main points I made in the tutorial, focusing on values, on the color, direction, and temperature of the light. I'm going to focus on the intensity of color, and I'm going to attempt to pay attention to the gradations of light using these two simple still life pictures that I've used in my classes for years. I know this is not landscape painting, but so many of the things we're learning about the light using these simple still lifes can help us do better paintings no matter what the subject. As you can see, I've taken the reference photo into Photoshop and posterized them, the lemons in black and white, so you can clearly see the gradations of value, and the cherries in color, so you can clearly see the gradations in color. You can also see more clearly the direction of the light. So let's give it a try. What I want to do is take a little piece of charcoal. I've got my 3 lemons, yellow lemons on a red plate. And the red plate is offset from the sides a little bit. It's over to the left. There's a little bit of the bottom of the plate showing, but it's attached at the top. And I intentionally cropped it that way so we could have a little bit more space on one side, a little bit more space on the bottom. It wouldn't be just a plate plunked in the middle of a canvas. So I'm simply coming up with an oval. It's not quite straight down flat, so the oval is just a little flattened. Coming up with it, and this is charcoal. You can rub it off. It's called vine charcoal. It's really soft. You can rub it off. I'm going to make a line from the beginning to the end of where I want each lemon. Beginning to the end. That's going to represent the middle of my lemon. The top, let's see, the bottom of this lemon. I'm just looking at the angle that I want the lemon to drop. So I'm making a line here. The one at the lower edge sits at an angle, but it doesn't come down. There's a lot of bottom of the plate here. I'm just using the inner edge of it. Let's draw on some more shapes that will represent our lemon for right now. It's a little wider through the middle. They touch right here. Leaving some room for the shadow of the lemon on the plate. The lemons touch right there, leaving some room for that little bump. Make sure we've got a spot where they touch, because this lemon casts a shadow. This lemon casts a shadow on that one. And then this one, it's like a little triangle and an oval. And it casts a shadow, an odd little shadow that hooks up with this shadow. And this shadow hooks up over here. I'm paying attention to the shadows because remember I said something in my tutorial. Pay attention to the direction of the shadows, to the direction of the light. Now we can clean these shapes up as we go, as we paint. The plate is a little bit closer to the end of this lemon. I'm looking at the direction that this lemon is angled. How is it laying here? Then I'm looking at how and where the shadow of the plate comes out. And I'm going to attach it to the bottom of my 8 by 10 canvas, because I feel like that's going to give me something interesting to look at. What I really like in this image is the color of the blue shadows and the orangey warm light. So I'm going to pay attention to the warms and cools on here. Now, there's a fairly decent representation here, not that great, but it's enough to get started. You can hear me digging around. I'm pulling out a new paintbrush. I'm going to try to do 2 of these little paintings today. So what I've got up here is I got some red in my blue, so I'm already starting out with a purple. When I was putting my colors out, I mixed them up. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my paint, just a tiny drop, with maybe a touch of water in it for it to flow better. And just kind of go over my chalk lines. Now that I have the basic chalk lines, not all of them. I don't need all of them. I can see where things go. But I am going to come through where the darks, there's like this nice little dark line through here. I'm going to find the edges of things and then let it go. Where does that start? Where does it start? Over here. This is the shadow. So once I have this in, I can lay in a wash. And I think for this wash, oops, let's get this in. A little tiny bit of water on my brush. Get those shadows. Just what I'm looking at is just putting a few little shadow shapes down so that I can find them later after I put a wash down. Now I'm going to tone the canvas with a real watery, orangey color. A lot of people ask me, well, why orange? Why did you choose that color? And honestly, I don't know. I just choose the color I think would look best, and the color that my imagination says might be best. So I'm mixing my cadmium yellow medium with my naphtha red light, and that's going to give me a nice warm punchy orange. And I'm adding a bunch of water to it. Oops, I got a little bit of purple on my brush, but I don't care, because I'm just gonna use this to drench this scene in an orange color. This will get all covered up with paint in a minute. I'm not worried about it. What I wanted to do was just put down something. It keeps me from getting too fussy from the start. Helps me to just get a big brush and lay big paint down. It shouldn't be a big deal. And now that I have that down, I'm going to take a damp paper towel and take out where I want my lightest lights. And those lightest lights just happen to be on the lit side of the lemon. So here we go. I'm going to take out the lit plate is not as light, so I'm going to leave that. This side of the table isn't as light as it is over here, so I'm going to take this out. Now I have a basic representation of my shadows and my lights, but it's not great. I had to move quickly because the paint's setting up. While the paint finishes, I'm going to talk about these colors that I have chosen and we're going to mix them up. First of all, I see the plate in light, and I am going to represent the plate where the sunlight is touching as a mid value because it's super bright. So I have my value scale. I'm squinting my eyes, and it's coming in at around a 6. That is super bright. I can lighten it with a little bit of yellow so that it just stays right mid-value. Now I'm going to mix up this yellow-orange color. To make yellow-orange, I'm just going to mix yellow with orange. How easy is that? And it's one of my light colors, so it's going to be a 1, 2, or 3 on the value scale. Considering the lemons, I'm going to do it at about a 2. It's not as bright a yellow as the lemons. The lemons in the light have to be brighter. Notice that the tabletop or my cutting board is not brown there. So now I have some of my plate, but it's cooler. It's not quite in the shadow, but it's cooler. The light's hitting more directly here and less directly over here. So I'm taking my cooler red, which is the primary magenta, and I'm cooling it off even more, throwing it more into a little bit of shadow by adding some blue. Now I'm going to go all the way to shadow these areas. There might still be a note or a hint of red in there, but it's going to have a lot of blue. And in order to knock this color down, make it not quite so brilliant purple, I'm taking just a little tiny bit of phthalo green and adding it to that just to knock the intensity of the color down, put it into shadow. Now I have some things in light on the lemons. Now we're in this thing. Remember in my tutorial, lemons under non-white lighting are not necessarily yellow, but in this case they're yellow. So in order to represent those lemons as brilliantly as possible, I'm going to use yellow out of the tube. But I see them starting to turn to shadow. So here's what I'm going to do. If I add black to this yellow color to make it go in shadow, it will turn green. If I add phthalo green to this color, it'll turn super green. No. So the other choice I have is to add blue to it, which will turn it green. If I add red to it, it's going to turn it orange. And I do see some reflected light on one side of the lemon that is orange. That's because the light's hitting the plate and bouncing back. But where that lemon is just simply turning to shadow, I'm going to take its opposite on the color wheel, purple, and add that purple. Might be a little too much blue in that purple. It looks gunk brown right now. However, when we start painting, hopefully, if I'm right, maybe it will turn to a color that's like shadow. Now we have this side where the light isn't as intense, this side of my wood cutting board. So I'm going to take some of this orange and I'm going to add a little blue to it. But before I put the blue in, I'm going to lighten it up. Put a little red in there. It also is sort of a weird color. Not quite orange, not quite blue. So I'm going to tip it over the scale. I'm adding a little white to soften the intensity. I'm adding a little bit of blue. And then I see the shadow. And the shadow right here is very blue. So, but not as dark as you'd think. When I use my value scale, it's a number 6 on the value scale. So I'm starting with this, and then I'm going to go to a darker blue violet with a little green in it, a little more blue. Because the light is so orange, my shadows have a lot of blue in them. So now I've got a bunch of colors mixed. My blues, my yellowy colors, my orangey colors, my tabletop colors, my plate colors. This is a very small piece, 8 by 10. So I'm going to start just laying in color with a big flat brush. I'm going to put, this plate is tilting up, and that puts this part of the plate kind of away from the light. It's tilting away from the light, so it is a touch cooler than the other side of the plate. And we'll get that other side, that warmer side, in just a second here. Here's the warmer color of red that I've chosen for this side of the plate. I'm not trying to match my photo because this photo is really old. I've used this photo with a lot of my students in a lot of my classes because it really shows warm light, cool shadows, and how we can gradate our color from one end of the scale to the other to represent how light is hitting. Warm light with a touch of orange in it. And as things begin to turn away from the light, they start to have this little bit of a shadowy color. Now this paint is still really thin and quite transparent. So I might go over it a few times. Where is the color that I selected for the other side? Ooh, what I'm going to do is warm it up just a little. It's not quite in the shadows, so I'm mixing all these colors because that color was a little bit grim. And that light blue shadow, and the shadow starts getting darker and really dark right here at the edge where it's closest to the plate. It's really dark, really, really dark. So I'm even gradating the color of the shadow as it moves. There's a window, a window shade open, sending some cool light this way. I'm going to lay in my yellow. Now, yellow paint, yellow pigment is quite transparent. So my first lay-in, just in the area of light only, where it starts to turn to shadow, that first lay-in is going to be the yellow with the white. The next lay-in is going to be that color of the lemon where it's starting to turn to shadow. The one that I added the purple to. Right here where everything starts to turn to shadow. If you're a really proficient painter, just consider this to be practice. If you've never done anything like this before, go slow, take it easy. Watch the video over and over. For those of you who only want landscapes, this still life will help you find things in your landscape painting. Find shapes in your landscape painting. So don't worry about whether, what the overall imagery is. Worry more about the angle of shadow and light. Now here's the color I reserved for the shadow of the lemons. It's a purple with a little touch of green in it so it doesn't get too crazy. It still has red in it from the plate because it's a cool colored shadow laying across a red plate. So there's going to be some red picking up in it. And I am just simply referring back to my photo so I can figure out those things. Now, there is a color here. And when I look at the color of the cut lemon, it's in shadow. And then I'm looking at the color over here of this shadow, and they're almost the same color. Move your eye back and forth. They're almost the same color. So I'm going to take that shadow color, put it in there. We'll just warm it up just a bit. But it's not yellow, not in the slightest. It is not yellow. It's that shadow color. I'm going to do another thing here, which is just break the edges apart a little bit. I'm going to come back and find those edges. I like broken edges. Now I'm seeing some reflected light. It's like a yellow-orange reflected on this side of the lemon. I'm seeing a yellow-orange reflected on this side of the lemon. I'm seeing a darker, now that I have that yellow and white on here, I'm going to start moving some of this color. Remember in our tutorial, the lamp on the wall. I'm going to start moving the color away on these lemons, sort of like the colors of the light, the lamp on the wall, as the light's beaming straight here, straight here, straight here, straight here. So as the colors move away from that straight beam of light, they're going to get more yellow and then more orange and then more of that gray blue color. And so I'm going to take the just pure yellow right out of the tube. And then in that center spot where this light is beaming the hardest, I'm going to find it, squint for it. I'm going to make a mark of even lighter stuff. Then it's going to get pure yellow as it moves away from that. And then a more orangey yellow as it moves away from that. I think I need to cool this area off a little bit. I warmed it up, but there's some cooler notes in this off side. No, bluer. When I look at this, it's more purple. All right, light, because the window light is coming through. And then underneath this lip, there's a reflection that I'm seeing. Let's get that dark color. Oh, I'm just really enjoying finding the different nuances of color. Now, when I look at the rim, it's not yellow like the lemon, but it has a touch of warm in it. So I added a little bit of orange to the white. Where the light is hitting the rim of the bowl. Now I'm gonna make it messy and come back and fix it. Why? I don't know. I like it. I like to do that. Where it's turning. Ooh. It's starting to go blue. A blue-green. Where it's turning up here away from the light. That rim of the bowl is still lighter Then the shadow, got some red in there. I'm going to make it a blue-green. So I'm mixing blue and green. It really almost glows, and there's a little bit of that glow inside the edge of this lemon. I made it a little big and thick, but we'll fix. Now that this is starting to set up, I'm just going to soften some edges around the shapes. There we go. I'm seeing a nuance I want to capture. The plate is slightly cooler where it flattens out here, and way cooler back here. So we'll use thicker paint as I go and cool that down. Make this smaller. I'm getting a feel of light. It's not there yet, but I'm getting the feel of light. I'm getting the feel of shadow in here. I'm still not happy with this color. It's warmy, cooly. It's a warmy, cooly, strange color. When it's right, it'll look right. When I get the color right, it'll just read correct. I don't feel like I have to like fuss over it right now because I'm fussing over other stuff right now. Now there is a shadow on this lemon. And then a shadow around back. There's a shadow on the back of this lemon. And right there. What I like about having pre-mixed my big mixtures is now I can go back in and subtly refine them. Using this Masterson Stay Wet palette, this paint is going to stay wet for my entire painting session, even if I take a long time, even if I go 2 or 3 hours on this little painting. This is going to stay wet. As long as I set it up correctly, it will stay wet. I feel like that got too dark and too just bleh. What color is bleh? I'm cooling my orangey yellow off with a little blue and white. Not quite so much. That feels better. Not quite so bleh. That is an official color term, by the way. Bleh. Now I do see, as this rim turns in, a little bit of a color shift right there. I see it turning from bright yellow to yellow orange right here. I like how lumpy and textural everything is. I'm enjoying this really textural surface. This light orange highlight, it is bounced light. That really warm orangey light bouncing from somewhere. And I feel like if I get these right, here I see more light on this side than I do on this as it goes down. Now there's a big mess here. Gotta get it cleaned up. Not worried about the big mess. I'm going to use a warmer red in this shadow color. Oh, I like that. I used my Naphthol red light instead of the primary magenta, and it really made a nice rich colored shadow. I like that. There's some highlights. There's some things happening. Cool. Now this isn't entirely in shadow. It's just tilted away from the light enough that it's not bright, warm. You can see the feel and the effect of light as it gets warmer and lighter. I might even put a little strip of even warmer and lighter right here. There is a bright reflection. On this rim that I'm going to try to capture in a minute. And this really beautiful blue thing. Blue. It might have to be a phthalo accent. I don't know. I'll try with my ultramarine first. There is a beautiful blue accent here. Might have to be phthalo because this is the wrong value. It's just wrong. The red has to go darker in order for that blue to show up. Ugh, that was gross. So I'm making the red in this area just a little darker. So when I come back with the blue, it'll really show up. And I kind of think I might be going with phthalo. I'm adding some shadow color right up through here. It's the rim of the plate. Oh, look at how wonky my plate is through here. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is just refine areas, find big ideas. How is this blue? And that is such a blue thing in that lemon. Whoever thought that would happen? How is it different than this shadow? What are the edges doing? I might not follow those edges all the way because I'm doing a little looser depiction of all of this. But just so we're clear, to make something look three-dimensional, we have to find the light, the angle of the light, and how, especially on a round object like this, we've got to find how the shadows wrap around the object. And I'm seeing a really great reflected area right here where the sunlight's beaming onto this lemon and beaming back. So I just put it on really nice and bright, toasty. I'm just giving those edges of the shadows a tiny softer bit, so that they aren't the only things out there with hard edges. Everything else, the edges are kind of softened. When we're thinking about painting loose, we also need to think about how you can be loose and accurate at the same time. And it's a delicate balance we're treading, being loose and accurate at the same time. There's going to be a highlight here and one right here, right at the top of that shadow. There's going to be a little bit of highlight, but not much in here. Oh, I got to let that dry a little bit more. A little bit of dark shadow coming under this edge. Coming under this edge. Where'd that pinky color go? It kind of stretches. This highlight kind of stretches out. It's going to get lighter in the center in just a minute, as is this one. But I messed up right here. This either needs to go darker, this shadow, or the the table needs to get lighter, and so I'm making my shadow darker. Why? Because the shadow has to be darker than the light. And for some reason, it doesn't look like it's darker yet. Ooh, I want to make a really black, dark. So I'm going to mix all three of my darkest dark colors together. And right under here, really dark. Too red in there. I'm going to do a greener dark. Shadow. I'm getting darker and darker as my lemon plunges into shadow. It's not yellow at all anymore. It's something else. That little tiny bud is catching a tiny drop of light. That's too much. It's taking away from everything else, but I'm going to put the other drops of light in, and we'll see. I'm going to put that highlight on, and then I'm going to use a clean finger if I can find one and kind of squish it. Just let it have a moment. This one is too bright. It's not at all that color, so I'm going to squishily remove it. I think it's more of a lighty beige color than it is white. White just took away. There we go. A little more of this shadow color up under the rim, right here. Okay. I feel like now we're starting to see the lemons become three-dimensional. We're talking about warm light and cool shadow. We can see the third dimension of this bowl. And you can use this same idea about this bowl with landforms, where the landform tilts more towards the sun. It gets lighter and warmer. Where it tilts away from the sun, gets cooler and darker, and you can create the feel of different landforms. Thinking I should let it dry, and while it's drying, I'm going to start another. I have the similar composition, but it's 3 cherries, 3 red cherries in a green bowl. So I'm going to leave these colors out and just paint another 8 by 10 of 3 little red cherries in a green bowl. I'm going to put my bowl over to the side and let it have a little bit of room. I'm fast forwarding through the drawing of the bowl because you already watched me draw the lemons on the plate. So this is not new information. If this were a drawing class, I would go through all the details of this, but it's not. It's a class on finding the light. So I just want to get the basic relationships and the basic sizes and shapes of the objects in this bowl, because so much of this tutorial is going to be about the shadow and the light, the color of the light and the color of the shadow, and how it influences the shapes of the cherries, the 3-dimensional shape of the bowl, and how you can use these same techniques in other styles of painting. I think this cherry will be my focal point. It's in a nice position for that, so I'm going to give it a lot of love. And it's got a lot of dark around it. It's just really, it's nice. So this one will get a lot of love. But first of all, I'm painting over my edges so that the charcoal doesn't disappear when I do a wash. Once again, I'm speeding up the tape because you really don't need to see me tracing over my lines. What's important is just that we reserve these soft charcoal lines with a little bit of paint so that the wash won't wash them away, and I know where everything is. So now I'm just going to fill in where the darkest shadows go, so I'll know where to put the color after I've mixed it up, and I know how dark I need to make it. All right, I'm going to wipe off some of this excess charcoal, and yeah, I think a purple wash over this. I have a lot of colors on here for my other painting. I'm going to scrape some of them back so I have room for it, because there's totally different colors. There's some colors like this one that are kind of the same, but then I've got a lot of greens and purples in here. I think the reds are similar, so maybe I'll scrape away some of the area up here with my big scraper. Well, you can use a spatula or a palette knife or whatever you want. It's okay. I just happen to have this scraper, so I'm going to use it. So just make a little room on my palette for some new colors. Here's a number 10 flat. I'm mixing my ultramarine and my primary magenta and quite a bit of water. I want to be able to see through it. This is the only time I'm going to add water to my mixture, making sure there's no white in that mixture, because white will make it opaque. Can I see through it? Yeah, I can see through it. That's the first step. Just making sure I can see through it. See my lines underneath. Did you see how fast that took for my lines to dry? Really great. And now all of the charcoal lines are kind of dissolved into this as well. The fact that there's water on it makes it easier for me to wipe away the lights. So here we go. I'm just going to wipe away the areas in this composition that are really light, a 1, 2, or 3 in value. I'm not going to, there's a little blue thing there I'm not going to put in. So everything on this composition that's a 1, 2, or 3 in value, I'm wiping away. Everything that's a 4, or 5, or 6 is represented, and now I'm going to put a little bit darker, more intense purple. This is not going to be the color of the surface. This is just me deciding where my shadows go. Once we get more into this painting, the optical colors will come out. Little shadow. Okay, I'm ready to mix up some of that really beautiful turquoisey green. So here's where that phthalo green blue shade is going to come in. And remember, there's warm light hitting it. This is awfully chilly, like spearmint or something. Way too cold. So guess what I have to do? I have to add some yellow to it because there is yellow light on it. More yellow. And that is going to give us, ooh, look. That color already is stunning. That's going to give us one of our colors. This beautiful teal in the light. Love it. Now there is a color in the shadow. And since our light is yellow, our shadows are going to be purple. So I'm taking that phthalo green and I'm mixing it with purple. If I mix it too much, it's going to look real goppy. Ooh, I like that. This is still a little wet though, so I'm going to let it set up before I put more paint on there. And this orangey yellow color of my table. This time it's a tablecloth, not a cutting board. So it's a little bit of a different color, but it's got that yellow in it from the light shining on it. So I'm going to go ahead and just blast it. It looks really intense next to the purple underwash, but the purple underwash is actually tempering it, making it not quite so in your face. Perhaps is the word, the color word I'm going to use there. Then I'm going into this cooler bit over here, because here and here, remember how things gradate away? Well, we're gradating the light. It's still in the light, but not being hit by as much light as over here. So it's just gradating away a little bit. If I go too far, I can bring it back. Ooh, I see some green, the green bowl colors right in between shadow and light are the actual colors of the interior of that bowl. So I'm going to do that. That's still really wet. I'll leave that for a minute. What I'm seeing up here is a blue violet. So blue and red. It's not super, super, super dark. It's kind of, ooh, that's too something. Too not violet enough, not blue enough. Here we go. Blue violet. More blue. And then it gets more violet as it moves forward. So I might need to clean this palette more. I feel like I'm not getting a really good blue violet, and I should be from these two colors. But I'm going to withhold judgment and just see what it looks like. Because off here, it's getting soft edged. Up here, it's a little harder edged. In here, it's really darkly greeny, purpley color. Oh, I just hit some white and I wrecked the color. Oh dear. Okay. Let me work on the cherries for a minute. We have a cool side, so I'm going to paint the entire surface of this with my cool red. And then I'm going to mix up a really warm red, an orange, almost orange, but it still appears red. So where the light is hitting, we have a different temperature of red. Where the light is hitting straight on, we'll just leave it at that for a minute. 2 values of red, 2 kinds of red. And here we go. I'm going to mix up that dark shadow color again. I can get a purpley green with just phthalo green and this primary magenta. And now I'm just going to put this in here, testing it out to see if I like it. If I don't like it, I still have options. The painting isn't done until the artist says it's done. And if you don't like what you did, don't finish. Say you're not done. It's pretty easy to just go ahead and say, oh, I'm not done with that. I have options. There are options for painting. And one of them is you get to decide when your painting is finished. A little bit bigger. I want this cherry I made the cherry too diminutive, so it's going to be bigger. I want them to show up in here, but I want to remember it's laying at an angle. This one I want a little bit bigger, and this one there. The bowl looks smaller, but the cherries look bigger. I'm going in for this side of the dish, and it's a ruddy, reddish brown. It disappears, and then it gets darker. There's a little reflection right in here we'll get in a minute. Oh, I'm excited. As this gets going, I'm excited to see how we can manipulate it to really look more like what I'm seeing. I want to make this a real blueberry blue-violet. More blue. This ultramarine is pretty weak. And I have to use a lot of it. There we go. It's darker down here. I don't know why the ultramarine is so weak. It doesn't seem like it used to be. Ah, that's not right. Shadows are darker than light. Just by their nature, they need to be darker than light. But even in these first couple moments of painting this, we can see that we're creating shape. We're creating the form of the bowl, the 3-dimensional form of the bowl. We're creating the experience of light as it's traveling across this surface. We're going to create the feel of the bowl as it turns towards and away from the light. All these things. It's a lot of things. We're going to try to create the 3-dimension of the cherries and also the feel of shadow and light, the feel of warm light cool shadows. That's a big ask for 3 little cherries. I'm using a clean thumb tip to create a soft edge, and I'll work on the shape and the texture of the side of the bowl here for just a minute. It's important to get the sides of the bowl right because it turns away and you can't see where it contacts the fabric of the tablecloth. And now I also want to get that gradation of light as it moves from shadow to light. So as I come in here with my big brush, I might be missing some stuff. But hopefully I will not miss the big stuff, the big shapes, the big forms. When I made my cherries a little bigger, I sort of lost the value and temperature difference between shadow and light. So I'm just going to try right now to reclaim them and see what we can do with warm and cool red. When these reds turn to shadow, there's a lot of blue in them. Why? Because there's a lot of orange in the light. There's a lot of blue to blue violet because it's yellowy orange light. So as I start manipulating these shadows, I'm thinking about that, thinking about adding blue, thinking about how these shadows contain blue, what I need to do to make the difference, to discuss the difference in color, to discuss the difference of shadow and light in color and value. What I love about this green bowl is it's the opposite on the color wheel from the cherries. Shadow. I really like how the stems connect the top and the bottom of the bowl and create a way to move the eye through the edges of the bowl to break it up a little bit. I increased the length of that one stem so it would do just that. Now, this was a lot to do with a great big brush on a little tiny canvas. So I am now switching to a smaller brush. And I'm going to come in and get the bowl a little bit more shapely. I'm going to find some real subtle changes in the light. Like, here's some yellow. I put this yellow in the green and in the white because right here, the light is hitting the edge of this. The light's hitting the edge here. Light's hitting this edge. And then it gets just subtly transformed. It's still in the light. It's just not as light. The light's coming from over here, and it's shooting this way. So as the bowl turns, things happen. Things are happening to this. This edge of the bowl is blocking the light. This edge of the bowl is catching the light. Some of the edge of the bowl is casting shadow on some of the cherry. Darker still. And then there are some reflections happening, like right here. The edge of the bowl appears to be reflecting into the side of the cherry. And that tells us a lot about what's happening. The light's hitting that and bouncing back. Because light just doesn't stay put. Light bounces. Light is a wave and it bounces everywhere. color, it doesn't just stay put. Color bounces everywhere. And so as we try to grasp how we depict the nuances of shadow and light, we have to remember that it's a wave. It's not a given. The cherries aren't just red because they're red. They're red because of certain things happening to them. And if those things are not present and not happening, they won't be red anymore. And isn't it fun to kind of figure that out? Oops, that's the wrong color. Let's get in here and create a color that'll work. Now I just really want to ramp this up. It's there, but it's kind of boring to me. So I'm really going to give it some more thickness and depth in these dark shadows. Then I'm going to come in with this color shaper and create a little more texture and liveliness in these light areas just by scooping up the paint and laying it on. The paint that is the color that I chose for this, with little dots of other color in it. And feeling that gradual transition from warm to cool, from lighter, brighter to a little cooler, maybe a little duller. More light. Right there, more light. And I really want to get the lit part of my cherries lit up, looking juicy. So remember, for that warm red, I'm just adding enough yellow to it to warm it up without making it pure orange. I can always come back over it with another layer of brighter, more pure red, but right now I want to give it the warmth. That bright pure red is going to happen right there. Right there. Oh boy. It's amazing what a little texture does, isn't it? A little warmth for the sunlight hitting, for that warm light. whether or not we're copying the actual colors of the photograph, what we want to do is depict the idea of warm light and cool shadow in this painting. If we had cool light, we would want to be depicting the idea of cool light on a subject. So it's just, what are we painting? We just have to keep remembering that question. What is it we're doing here? And as we go, just keep thinking about what is it we're doing here. I'm going to add a few more details, get things tidied up just a little bit, although I really like the edges that are happening here right now. Loving this. Okay, I'll get out my little brush. And see, I lost a few things. I lost a stem. I want to get that. There's light on the stem coming from over here. There's some shadows coming up here. There's light from this stem. And I'm overlapping it over the bowl a little bit. Now there's some of this dark in through here. Finding my shadows is really important. The light is important, but the shadows are important too. So what I'm doing here is not really talking about cherries, is it? I'm talking about the light. We would have a different conversation if I was actually talking about cherries. This painting is discussing the light. What's the light doing? What's it hitting? How is it changing things as it goes? All of those questions are really good questions to ask as we're working our way to the end of the painting. And I really love this green against red because it glows, and this blue violet against the orange, it glows. It is so glowy and beautiful. So, is this painting perfect? No, by no means. Is my drawing perfect? No. Are my brush strokes perfect? No. But did I do what I set out to do? I hope so. I hope in both pieces I've captured the effect of light, of warm, beautiful light as it runs across surfaces and strikes objects. I really hope that you get the feel of light little bit warmer, lighter here. As I have to watch as the paint dries to make sure I have the right value jumps. A lot of acrylic paints will darken when they dry. So you just have to pay attention. And if they've darkened, you just need to lighten them up. Okay, that's it. 3 cherries. Well, okay, one more little mark here. 3 cherries in a bowl in warm light. There we go. Oh, every time I say stuff like that, oh, you know, if you've been with me any length of time, you'll know I lie. That's it. I'm going to stop it here because we need time to have questions and answers and think about how this really loosely painted painting depicts the light. Here are the 2 little demos side by side. And I think I just want to take a moment to make a few small changes. So I fast forwarded my changes. I'm going to brighten up some of the lit areas, add some more detail to the shadow area on this little lemon. I just completely try to enhance both the shadow and the light areas in this lemon painting. There's some blue reflections, so I've added a little bit of phthalo blue to my palette. Phthalo is a really strong blue, and so you can get it very light with white without it fading out. I also want to add just a little touch more of this greenish color in the shadows on my lemons as they turn away from the light, and enhance some of the lighter areas. I would love to get that feeling of the light really streaking across there by adding a few little highlights to the lemons, adding and enhancing the highlight on the plate. And I think I want to enhance the highlights on these cherries too, just a little bit of a thick pinker area right next to the highlights. A little bit more light on the stems, light on the edge of the bowl, and then I'm seeing some light under the bowl where perhaps there's a little bit of reflection happening under there as the bowl curves around to touch the table. I'm thinking about how that upper shadow just kind of dissolves into the background. And looking at the direction of this, one more lemon, enhancing the shadows right around it, and finding a way to get that shadow going the correct direction. It was going off in the wrong direction. So these little finishing touches are sort of what I'm talking about when I say your painting can be loose, but we still need to find a way to make it a bit more accurate. And that's what all these final changes are about, is to create an accuracy and still maintain the looseness of the paintings. Here are the final pieces. I really had fun doing these 2 little still lifes today, and I really hope they helped you see how to create the magic of light.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes.
Whew.
And good job. Good job. I was laughing, and then you said something really funny because you said, "Okay, that's it," and then you said it again, and then you said, "Well, if you've been with me for very long, you know that I'm lying," or something.
Right. I often that's it myself into a corner, and then I overwork it, and you know.
Well, it's so hard to be talking and painting and evaluating all at the same time. And I think that's the tricky part, is we want to summarize, we kind of feel like, okay, this is good, this is done. And then you're just pulling away a little bit and you spot that one more thing.
That's that one little deal. Yeah. There is one thing I saw on this one. Earlier on, I'd lost the edge right here. And I loved that. And I covered it up and I'm like, oh, bummer. That lost edge was one of my favorite things. And I covered it when I did that, oh, one more thing deal. So
Oh, it looks great. It looks amazing. It looks amazing.
well, thanks.
Yeah. Well, you guys, if you have questions, this is your chance. I saw a couple a little bit ago, but I'm gonna try to see if I can. Somebody asked something about. Oh man, I can't see it now, and I wasn't sure because it was when you had both of the paintings up there. They asked something about a shadow, but I don't know what they meant.
They said one edge of the shadow was hard. I saw it and I wasn't quite sure how to answer it with typing, so I thought, well, one edge of the shadow was hard and the other was soft. And that happens a lot of time where the light is stronger on one side than the other side. And I'm not sure which painting they meant, but both paintings have like a hard edge to the shadow and then a softer edge where the shadow's going away. And it seems like the farther away the shadow is from the source of light, the softer it gets. How do you get a soft edge? Yeah. Do you see me with my gloves on using my finger? When the paint's still wet, I just use my finger and squish it all up there.
Yeah. And then there's this question too. When making white pop, what are the colors besides yellow to make white extra bright?
Sometimes if the white isn't popping out bright enough, you need to make what's around it a little darker because you only have values 1 to 9. And if the white just doesn't look white, you got to darken up what's around it.
Yeah. Here's something I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but I saw one time Amy was doing something and she had a lot of golden light in a sky or something. And then she had the actual sun and she put a little tiny bit of violet. I think it was violet just like a faintest bit of violet in the like the lightest part of the sun area. Oh. And it was she said, well, this, because it's the contrasting, the complementary color of,
that makes
maybe this.
But she's so good, it makes me mad. She's like, I go, oh, why didn't I think of that? When I see, because it's just so effortless with Amy. I love her painting.
I know. Yeah. I know. So impressed with your ability to paint and instruct at the same time. I know. Dianna is amazing. She's one of the best. You're one of the best people at explaining things, and it's just awesome.
Well, great.
Awesome as always. Thank you so much. You paint so fast. Well, some of that might have been time lapse at the end, especially. So
at the end it was fast. Yeah, I tried not to time lapse the other things, but yeah. Most people shouldn't paint as fast as me because it just gets out of control. But I try to paint ahead of that naughty little voice inside of me that tells me that this is terrible and that I should give up and that I should, stop right away. So I try to paint ahead of that voice. So I just keep going and I don't care what you're saying. I'm just going to go. But that's my own little, that and chatting a lot. Those are my defense mechanisms against that internal crazy self-doubt that,
Yeah. This is my one of my new favorite quotes. Doubt is a traitor. It never helps you. Always just is trying to betray us. Okay.
No, it
Ricky
freezes.
says, were you using two brushes?
Yes. I was using a number 10 for most of These are little 8x10s. And so a number 10 is pretty big for that size. And then I was using a number 4 flat. So a 10 flat and a 4 flat.
So people can't believe that you or me, and like, I think the reality, guys, is that I think all of us have that little voice inside of us.
We just have to identify it and, make fun of it, because it takes it so seriously, that voice, like, oh, what's going to happen if you fail? And I'm like, then I just like smash things up or scratch through, because what if I fail? I guess I failed it.
I totally agree with you. I think that the best way to deal with the critical voice of, oh no, what if it's not perfect, is just to make it not perfect right off the bat. And it reminds me of a story of there was a book, I'm pretty sure the book was called A Severe Mercy. And it's this guy's story of him and his wife, his bride that he loved so much, and their marriage, but then she ended up passing away with a sad, some kind of illness or something. And so it's kind of his memories and things. But there was a story in there that he said they bought a new car, a brand new car, but they were worried a little bit that because they liked the car so much that if one of them got into a little fender bender with it, that the other person would be really upset at them. So they intentionally went out to their car, and I don't know what they did. I can't remember this part of the story, but they had a little hammer or something like that. And they just went, ding, put a little dent in it, on the very beginning when they had it, just to take away the fear of oh no, what will happen? I think sometimes it's just good to grab something and do something a little bit crazy and make a mess on your painting, just so that you can get that out of the way. Just go whatever. Okay.
If people have seen my other demos, sometimes I'll take a sharp, a blade or the backside of my brush and scratch it all up. Just take it and scratch through the paint, and because I'm starting to feel that, that feeling of, I got to make this perfect. 100 people are watching. And then I'm like, stop it, just scratch it all up. And now it's wrecked. And now I don't have anything to prove except just do the painting now. Okay. Sort of like dinging the car.
Exactly. Look at this. Okay. I would have given up years ago if I kept listening to that little voice, but I still pushed on. And that's awesome, Trudy. That's what we all just need to do. Let's see. You do such a good job of explaining things and painting at the same time. And Leslie says, I especially value all your lessons in the science of color, light, value, distance, etc., and the why of it. Then we get to watch you apply these insights in a painting. Yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm. Such an informative class.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. The messy middle gets me every time and lasts way too long. Any insights other than painting fast?
No, that you don't have to paint fast. The messy middle is what I used to call in watercolor the soup stage, where it was just all the ingredients were just flowing around and looking terrible. And then all of a sudden, or maybe not all of a sudden, years and eons later, or whatever, you start putting in in watercolors, putting in the darks. And, but in acrylics, it's like putting in the last little bits of detail that pull it together, sort of bring it out of the soup stage, but you have to trust the process. And that's the big thing. You don't need to get out of that messy soup stage. You have to love that messy stage. Because, think about if you're raising a kid. They're really cute and adorable at the beginning. And then about preteen, not your child. Your child is perfect. But mine got emotionally a little messy in their teenage years. And quite difficult to deal with. And, you know, we loved them through that messy stage, and they came out the other end as glorious, very amazing women. But they had to go through that messy stage, or they never would have gotten to the point where they were such strong, independent, self-actualized humans. Because they had to test all their bounds, and they had to make a lot of mistakes. And, you know, that messy middle was important to their development, just like it is in your painting. So cherish it, go with it, trust that you'll come out the other side. So, yeah.
That is such an interesting analogy. I've never, ever, ever, ever thought of that together, you know, but we're in the middle of that right now with Willow. She's 14, you know, and she's a delight. Like, I love her so much. And it is different than it used to be when she was, you know, younger. And there's this element where we're all kind of shifting a little bit and like learning how to be ourselves in this new period of time, and knowing that it's still kind of a transitional time. And, you know, she's growing up, and it's very interesting to think of that as, you know, the lesson that I keep thinking is, in 4 years, she's going to be gone. And so, like, how do I just be light in this moment right now, and enjoy it? And to think of that in a way, like, in art, I mean, that's a really fascinating way to think about it, because I think that what we want is the destination. We want the finished painting that's really good. But just like in all of life, that's what we want. We want the healthy body. We want the fixed up, finished house. We want the studio that's, you know, whatever it is that we say we want. We want the finished product. But I think that the solution, or like the way that we actually have the life that we want, is to enjoy the process of getting there. And that's really interesting to think about an individual painting, or even the journey of painting. You know, like, we're not there yet, but can we enjoy this moment right now, even though it might include these messy, frustrating kind of times where we go like, you know what, I'm not going to look at that as a frustration anymore. I'm going to look at that as a joy. This is me learning.
And this is life. Life is made of this messy middle. I mean, most of life, don't you think? Is the messy middle. You gotta just be like, oh yeah. I mean, for me, cooking is that way. I really have a big messy middle. Like, literally ridiculous.
I think that's a super helpful way to think of it, though. It really is. Gretchen says, do you have a favorite color of lighting, or a favorite shade of a color to paint?
I love that warm evening light. I just love it. And I love, you know what I love is when Jed does those sunburst things where the trees are all red. Have you seen those? Like, I love watching him do that, because he captures that where the light turns all the trees in the back red and magenta and orange, and you're like so shocked. And yet it's like someone turned the light on in the painting. It's still values 1 to 9, but somehow it just, everything lit up. I love that so much. And it's not as easy as he makes it look. Chad, just say.
You should have seen me struggling. You should have seen me struggling recently. I have this painting over here that it's been a real battle, a real battle.
And they, you know, I don't think there's ever a time, like, it does get easier. Painting does get easier. You learn certain tools and techniques that you can trust, and you can also trust the process. And especially with acrylic paints, you know, even if you make the worst flubs of all times, you can fix them with that knowledge in hand. But it's still a learning process and still a struggle. And we just that's why we're together, you know, I was watching people's like chatting with each other and stuff as I'm answering in the comments, and I'm loving that so much because we're in this together and we can help each other with that struggle.
Hey, Jim has this question here. Do you have, like, I think the question is essentially, are you putting the paint on kind of thick so that later you will be able to come back maybe and do some softening of edges? Is that intentional? Because I think he's seeing that maybe his paint is drying faster because it's not as thick, and then he doesn't have the opportunity to come back.
Definitely thicker paint dries slower. So you do have the option. You still have to work pretty quickly with the edges if you're going to soften them. But there's another trick, which is to set up your palette like I do, which is in a color wheel, and all your colors that you've mixed kind of stay true. So if you find an edge that you just got too hard and you really want to soften it, you can go back and pick up that color off your palette, put it right where you want, and then just, there we go. I'll do it that way. Smudge it. Or take a little soft brush and just use that paint and kind of, whisk it across the edge.
This is funny. I think this is funny. That's why God made teenagers, so you want to kick them out of the nest. It's like a little bit like when sometimes when I feel like it's the right time to I'm just thinking back to a work situation that I had before in Indianapolis where I loved what I did, but it got a little bit complicated. It got a little bit hard. And then it became clear, oh, actually there's a different door opening here. And that was when I became a full-time artist. But if it was not kind of hard in that time, I probably wouldn't have really thought so much about becoming an artist. So it is kind of interesting how some of the hard stuff kind of gets us moving in a direction that we might not have moved.
It does. Let's see. Tina's asking a technical question, Tina Dale, about the gradation of light. And what I use to show that gradation, the things that I use to change my photographs is Photoshop. And then you go, there's a little, and it's the cheapest version of Photoshop. You don't need a fancy version. There's a little thing called artistic, and you click that, and then it says cutout. And what it does is it cuts, and you can tell it how much cutout you want it. It cuts it into 3 shapes. You can just say how many shapes, 3. You can say how many, there's a little slider bar. That artistic cutout thing on Photoshop simplifies it all, and you can see the gradation.
Carrie says, Danny, you look so pretty today with your sweater color and jewelry.
Thank you.
Very true. Loosening up is courage to be messy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We are not struggling alone. We are all growing, but at different stages.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even for some people who feel like they're beginners and they don't feel comfortable putting their work up in our private group, you can feel comfortable because we've all been there and we know that. And there's not like it's not like there's a better and a worse. There's just stages on the road, on the journey. And there's places that we stop at and there's places that we struggle through, but we're all in this together and you're going to get loved. And we understand what starting looks like. So and it has to it just has to go through those stages so that you learn. That's it. Carrie says you're pretty too, Jed.
I know. I was just looking at that. Thank you, Carrie. That's really funny. Okay. Jim says, Dianna, I love when I find one of your paintings at Red Sky Gallery in Lake Forest Park. So they're so different in person.
Yeah. You can't really see the texture online. And when you see them in person, they're like something you want to lick. They're just like so yummy. The texture, that's what I love about that thick paint and the texture, which is why, it costs a lot of money to put a ton of paint up on your painting, but I think it's worth it.
It is. Okay, well, you guys, it is fun. I think we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun. It's fun to be on this journey together, you guys. We love you guys. We're proud of you. And Dianna, thank you. Thank you for pouring your heart into your workshops and giving such incredible information and application of the concepts that you're giving us. So really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for that. And thank all of you for sticking with me for so long. This has been a really fun workshop. And next month, I'm working on the ideas for it already. So we'll have fun next month too.
Yes, you guys, you're loved and believed in. Next week, I'll be dropping my Bloom video. And then the week after that, we've got Sam's. Anyways, love you guys. See ya.
Bye.